Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're diving into a truly fascinating moment in political commentary. A development that, for many, was a genuine double take. We're talking about an unexpected, well, concession, really, from a major news network regarding the 2024 election race.
Right. And what's fascinating here is how a CNN anchor from a network, often seen as pretty critical of Donald Trump, appeared to acknowledge that he is, quote, on a roll and gaining what they called unstoppable momentum for 2024.
Unstoppable momentum.
Yeah. And it wasn't just a quick mention. The reports say they use phrases like undeniable surge, clear lead, and voter enthusiasm. So for many viewers and definitely political analysts, it certainly caught them by surprise, sparked a lot of talk.
That's a really powerful acknowledgement, especially, coming from that particular outlet. But what exactly is fueling this narrative of an undeniable surge? What data, or maybe perceived data, might have prompted such a significant shift in tone?
Well, our sources suggest this isn't just, anecdotal. This shift seems to line up with a few measurable things. For one, polling. Internal polls from various nonpartisan groups consistently show Trump either holding or widening his lead over rivals in the primary.
Okay.
And in some key swing states, showing a significant narrowing of the gap against President Biden.
Right, narrowing the gap. So it's not just a feeling, there are actual numbers behind it.
Exactly.
Beyond the polls, though, are we seeing other indicators, things that might force a network to sort of reevaluate their narrative? Like, what about rally attendance, for instance?
That's a great point, because while polling gives you a snapshot, right, rally turnout offers a different kind of feel. It's about raw enthusiasm, organizational muscle.
Yeah, the energy.
Precisely. And our research highlights that Trump's campaign rallies are drawing massive crowds. They're far outpacing his primary opponents, and sometimes even bigger than his crowds from previous campaigns.
Bigger than before.
In some cases, yeah. So this visible, kind of undeniable energy plus strong fundraising numbers, it paints a picture of a campaign that's really gaining traction. And that's hard for any network, whatever their editorial stance, to just ignore completely.
That's where it gets really interesting, doesn't it? When a network like CNN, often critical, uses terms like undeniable surge and unstoppable momentum, it really suggests a powerful internal shift. So what does this tell us about the bigger picture, the landscape of political reporting, and how did other media outlets react?
Well, it definitely raises an important question about, the pressures on mainstream media. Some political experts are suggesting this shift reflects maybe a growing internal pressure.
Sure, right.
Yeah, pressure within these networks to cover the Trump campaign more, let's say, objectively, especially as his popularity climbs and the numbers get hard to argue with.
Because if they don't, they risk losing credibility.
Exactly. Credibility with at least a segment of the audience.
And credibility is everything. So how did this ripple through the rest of the media? I mean, it couldn't have gone unnoticed.
Oh, far from it. This unexpected acknowledgement from CNN stirred up a lot of reactions right across the board. On Fox News, for example, the hosts of The Five reacted with, well, a mix of disbelief and maybe some mockery.
Okay.
Greg Gutfeld joked, hell must have frozen over. Jesse Waters added something like, the tide has truly turned.
Wow. So it really highlighted that stark media divide.
Absolutely. The reaction itself became a story.
It's almost like the very idea of a perceived opponent acknowledging this momentum was news in itself.
Yeah.
But beyond those immediate sort of partisan reactions, how might this subtly influence public perception?
Yeah.
Especially for, say, the undecided voter.
Yeah, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's a fascinating look at media influence. For Trump supporters, hearing this from CNN was like validation, long overdue honesty, maybe.
Right, vindication.
But for critics, it sparked concerns. Could this kind of commentary normalize his comeback? Could it downplay past issues?
That's a fair point.
And then there's the uncommitted voter. Hearing this narrative from an unexpected source, like CNN in this case, might give it more weight. It could potentially shift their view of the race, maybe make it seem more inevitable.
Yeah, makes sense.
And all this is happening as Trump's rivals are, frankly, struggling to gain traction. And President Biden's approval ratings aren't great, especially with younger voters and working-class voters. It makes the whole landscape pretty complex.
So ultimately, whether it was just a slip of the tongue or maybe a strategic recalibration or simply someone stating the data, this deep dive really shows us that even a network often seen as critical can't completely ignore this Trump wave that seems to be building.
Yeah.
So for you, the listener, what does this tell us about how political reporting might be evolving? And maybe more importantly, how might this kind of subtle shift in the media narrative influence not just what you think, but how you think about the election ahead. Something to consider.